What we're going to be doing from this point forward is building the first application that we're going to be building in this course. And this application is going to be the backend application, and we will be building a front-end application to communicate with that backend application. But we're going to start with the backend application and build this thing out. And then once we're done, we're going to test it, and then we're going to build the front end to communicate with the backend. So I'm back in Visual Studio Code, and everything that we worked on, so all the files that we worked on, they should be available to you. So make sure you grab all the code and then review everything that we did. And like I mentioned, what we're going to be working on right now is the backend application, and we're going to be building this using Node.js, and we're going to persist our data. And for this, we're going to be using the MySQL database server. And in the end, we're also going to be deploying this application. And to help us with this, we're going to be using Docker. So we're going to be doing a lot of interesting things here. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that I want to do, since I don't have a visual to show you of what we're going to be building in the end, because we're going to be building this together. So I don't have anything to show you as to the final product that we're going to be building. However, we have to talk a little bit about what exactly we're going to be doing. So I'm going to open a new file here, and that's just going to be like a text file or something. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing, just so you guys know exactly what's coming. So the backend application is going to be something called an API, which is application programming interface. So I'm going to say application programming interface. So an application programming interface, this is really kind of a broad concept because an interface is in so many different places. For example, your cell phone has an interface, which is the keyboard or the screen that you use to interact with the software or the underlying software. So that is an interface. So it's anything that allows you to connect to some application that you use to talk to another application or talk to some other technologies or talk to some other entity. And you can see here, if we look at this a little bit closer, it says application programming. So this is like technology stuff. And then the keyword here is interface. Interface here is made of two words, which is enter, which is in between, and then face, which is like a facade or the endpoint of something. So really what this means is that it's the endpoint that's going to allow something to be communicated with something else. But I want to make sure that I center this around, software development. So we're going to be focusing on that definition for just software development itself, which is, building API so that we can send requests to them and then interact with the API that way using HTTP protocol, which is like the most common way that, we build APIs and how we communicate with API. So we're going to be building that, which is going to be an application programming interface or an API or a Node backend application that you can communicate with using the HTTP protocol over the internet. So that's what we're going to be building. So some of the stuff we're going to need is we're going to be working with MySQL because we're going to be persisting our data. So this is going to be for data persistence. And we're going to also need to handle requests. So handle HTTP requests. And we need to handle CORS. So that's cross-origin resource sharing. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. And we need to deal with something called SQL queries because we're going to need to write queries so that we can manipulate our data in the database. And then we're going to be using Docker. So Docker is going to come in the very end because that's what we're going to be using to just wrap up the application into a nice Docker image. And then we can run that image on any computer, which is going to make deployment a little bit easier for us. And this is really everything that comes up in my mind right now. There's probably more things that we're going to be doing that I can't really remember. But at a high level, we're going to be building Node.js application. So let's make sure I put this at the top. So this is going to be a Node.js app, and it's going to persist data using MySQL. We're going to be handling HTTP requests because it's an API. So it's going to be like a standalone application. And the way that we're going to be communicating with this application is by using the HTTP protocol. So we're going to be using the HTTP protocol, sending HTTP requests, etc., which is what I'm talking about on line 6. So handle HTTP requests. And another thing that comes to mind is routes. So we're going to be dealing with creating routes in the application, and we're going to need to create a database configuration. So configuration. And another thing is the controller. So we're going to be using the model view controller pattern. So we're going to be building a controller. And one last thing that comes to mind is something called error handling. Okay, because when you build an API, it's very important that you handle all your errors. So we're going to be doing that as well. So whenever we're done building this application and we run it and test it and everything, we should be able to test it in the browser, and we should be able to test it using Postman or any other HTTP client that you want. But we should be able to send requests with the proper data to the proper routes, and then we should be able to see the application in action. So that's everything that comes to mind right now. And of course, when we're gonna be building this, everything that comes up, I will let you guys know. And that's what we're gonna be doing. So I mean, this is something that I'm just thinking about out loud. So we don't need to, put this anywhere. You don't need to copy this or anything like that. This is just me having a conversation with you about things that we're gonna be dealing with when we're building this application. All right, so we have a lot to do. So let's go ahead and get started.